arose from the growing social and legislative movement against immigration and descendants of immigrants in the United States. Conservatives and progressives alike put forward a policy of Americanization in which immigrants were conditioned to fit into a white, Protestant, Anglo-Saxon view of American culture. Influential Americans like Henry Ford promoted the idea of America as a melting pot of cultures, where immigrants entered and melted into this view of an American. Some Americans reacted even more hostilely against diversity through philosophies like fundamentalism and groups like the KKK. However, even the more tame actions against foreign cultures, like Americanization, were efforts at the assimilation of thousands of immigrants through the destruction and development of foreign cultures. Immigrants fought back against the discrimination and anger against them through the social and philosophical development of pluralism. In addition to the social discrimination against immigrants, politicians passed several acts restricting immigration, especially that of Eastern and Southern Europeans, Africans, and Asians. The Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882 did as its name suggests and barred Chinese people from immigrating to the U.S. initially for 10 years, which grew to another 10 from the Geary Act, before becoming permanent in 1902. Again in 1917, Congress passed the Asiatic Barred Zone Act, which the incumbent President Wilson attempted to veto. Congress's ability to override President Wilson's veto shows their immense support for the bill. The act barred the entrance of undesirables and people from the Asiatic Barred Zone, which included any country not owned by the U.S. adjacent to the continent of Asia, and certain areas designated by longitudes and latitudes. The Immigration Act of 1924, also known as the Johnson-Reed Act, set a quota for immigration at 2% of the number of foreign-born immigrants of each nationality that were living in the U.S. in 1890. Few from Southern and Eastern Europe could enter the country, and virtually all immigrants from Asia, Africa, and Latin America were blocked. The United States was not at all a welcoming place for immigrants or even those already naturalized who differed culturally, religiously, racially, or linguistically. Pluralism rejected the melting pot, attempts at Americanization, and restrictions on immigration. Pluralists believed that diversity made the United States stronger, not disjointed. Organizations like the Anti-Defamation League and National Catholic Welfare Council were created to combat the discrimination and violence immigrant groups faced in America. Some pluralists grew prominent, or at least prominent relative to the movement, for their work promoting their cause, such as Randolph Bourne, Mary Antin, and Horace Collin. Although the pluralist movement was truly small at its beginning and struggled especially through World War II because of anti-Axis sentiments, pluralism in the 1920s and 30s began to develop and grow into a meaningful set of ideas and organizations. Pluralists came from all over. The group was mainly composed of immigrants and others who were marginalized and oppressed under the contemporary American system. Randolph Bourne, author of a famous essay for The Atlantic from 1916, Transnational America, was a native-born son to Anglo-Saxon parents. However, on account of his natal disfigurement from spinal tuberculosis, Bourne identified with the marginalized immigrants and argued that all Americans were immigrants, and so restrictions should not be placed on those who aren't Anglo-Saxon and Protestant. Bourne asserted that all Americans are foreign-born or the descendants of foreign-born, and if distinctions are to be made between them, they should rightly be on some other ground than indigenousness. Horace Collin, a Jewish second-generation American, argued that the U.S. was a democratic society which should be a realization of the assumptions of the Declaration of Independence, a leveling society such that all persons become alike either on the lowest or the highest plane. Mary Antin, a Jewish Russian immigrant, wrote prominent autobiographies about her experience immigrating to the U.S. and her experience there. Various people from disadvantaged parts of life came together to promote and develop. Truly, the powerful American stance was anti-immigration, as shown in the overwhelming congressional support for various immigration acts, but pluralism provided a movement and philosophy that supported immigrants and other marginalized groups in America. Brought on by the continuous and extreme waves of legislative and social action against immigrants and other Americans who didn't fit the dominant group's idea of an American, that is, a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, pluralism provided a basis for other action against the ruling ideas of innate ability in society. Although in the 1920s and 30s pluralism was not large enough to combat the general vicious action against immigrants and the many other oppressed American people, pluralism provided a philosophical movement towards acceptance and diversity for those activists and thinkers who challenged the current system.